Welcome to Corks and Conversation 2 with T Jefferson Parker.
Yes, we first talked to him our first season, and that time it was in person, which was
Yes,
kind of cool.
it was so fun. At that point, we were all together in Florida at Sleuth Fest. I wish we could be in person today, but Zoom is great also.
Yes, yes, we have that. We have that. And so before we get started today, I'm going to reintroduce T. Jefferson Parker to everybody. So he is the award-winning and New York Times best-selling author of numerous novels, which I count like 27 published. Am I
That's
right?
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Just
And
27.
short stories. He's won 3 Edgar Awards, and he's the recipient of Los Angeles Times Book Prize for Best Mystery. And before becoming a full-time novelist, he was an award-winning reporter. And so we talked to Jeff about his Roland Ford mysteries, which we love. And in his latest novel, A Thousand Steps,
There we go.
and Kathy's going to hold
I've
it
got
up
it.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
Such a good cover.
I know, right?
cover,
It's
yeah.
great. So anyway, he's kind of going in a little bit of a new direction. So this novel is a beguiling thriller, an incisive coming of age story, and a vivid portrait of a turbulent but beloved time and place. So we did love this book as well. And if you don't believe us, Lee Child had a thing to say about it, and he
Who?
said, "Parker."
I'm sorry, who was that?
Yeah,
Did you say?
yeah, Lee Child, just Lee Child, when Kathy loses her voiceover. Um, Parker already has 2 or 3 titles on my all-time best ever list, and now comes A Thousand Steps, which might be his crowning achievement. This is Lee Child saying this, not me. It's a great story and a nuanced look at the nation in 1968, and above all, it proves no one inhabits character as completely and intensely. Matt Anthony is a changing boy in a changing time, and you won't ever forget him. So that is something.
That's a review.
Yeah, that's a review.
Yeah.
And Jeff, we're just so happy to see you and have you here again today.
It's great to be here. It really is. Thanks for the invite. I'm proud to be on your show. And yeah, that was one of the nicest little reviews or endorsements I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I mean we know you're great and everything, but it's nice to hear, from other people than just us, I guess. So, Kathy, why don't you tell us about the wine today? Oh, Jeff, do you have your wine?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, good. I forgot to
almost
ask you beforehand. I want to make
Yes.
sure that
Yeah.
sometimes people forget.
So
Oh, no.
so Jeff had a great recommendation. Is the same bottle you have, Jeff? Did I get the right one?
That bottle you have is a little better than the one that I have. Mine is the white diamond collection, and I think that red is a little pricier and a little older, probably a little better.
This is
But it's
the only
same
one in my
thing.
little liquor store in town,
Perfect.
my little town head. And so we are enjoying the Coppola Diamond Collection Zinfandel. And I'm going to read you the tasting notes while we have a little sip.
All right.
It is spicy, jammy, and bold.
Mhm.
Okay, got that.
Rich with ripe red fruit flavors, a medium body, and long on the palate. Notes of caramel, vanilla, baking spices, and raisins
Hmm.
complement flavors of cherry and strawberry on the palate. What do you think?
Yum.
This
I
is
think
one of your
that's a good-
favorites now, huh?
I think that's a good description. The only one I didn't get was the caramel. The rest of it made sense to me. And the baking spices, yeah.
Mhm.
And medium body and all, long finish, I like.
Yeah. It's a nice bottle of wine.
I've been to this vineyard.
Really?
Coppola vineyard.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
And if ever it's beautiful. And I had dinner there with my dad, but it was like they have an outside balcony area that you sit on and you overlook the vineyards.
Mm,
Oh, nice.
It was very
Nice.
nice.
yeah.
And then it's just a big complex because, they have the tasting rooms and things. And of course, they have like a media room where it sees all Coppola's posters and awards and stuff.
Cool.
But
Hmm,
it was
that'd
it
be
was a
good.
fun
I'm a
time.
huge fan of Coppola. I mean, his movies, especially The Godfather, and
Yeah.
possibly my favorite movie of all time. So when he came out with wine 20 years ago, whatever it was, I was first in line to buy some, and I've been drinking it ever since. It's good stuff, and it's reasonably priced, and
Yeah.
you can find it. It's
Yep.
yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yep. So there you go. Road trip
Good.
someday. Go on up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that would be a great
Good
destination.
recommendation. That's a great
Mhm.
recommendation.
All right, glad
Perfect.
you like it.
Okay, let's get
All
into
right.
it. Let's get into
Okay,
this gorgeous.
yeah. All right. So this
Okay, so
no, it's not gorgeous, Cathi. It's bitchin'. That's
okay.
a bitchin' book.
That's good. Yeah, it is
Okay,
bitchin'
so
and gorgeous. Yeah.
this cover, I mean, look at if
Yeah.
you're not watching us on YouTube, you need to check it out or just go order the book. It's such a gorgeous cover.
I know.
Yeah,
Sure.
it really is. When they sent it to me electronically, the first draft of the cover, which looked almost exactly like that, I couldn't believe it. I'm so used to having publishers send these covers and getting into arguments, everybody's disputing it, and this one was just, well, go to press with that one. It's perfect. My agent said the same thing. So it was like everybody was just wowed by Forge's cover, and people remark about it all the time. So yeah, I agree. I love the cover.
And it
Yeah.
fits so well. You can kind of know right away that it's in the 60s or whatever.
Yep.
And it's such a good book. I mean, I want to read it again because I feel like there's you have the mystery thriller aspect, but there's just so much from that time and under the surface. I mean, and I noticed that there's a lot of the conflicts that they had at that time, like they're changed, but we still have very similar conflicts now. And it's kind of interesting that you can see that, like, this resistance to change. Things are changing, and people are resisting it. And the same now, except for now we have the news and social media and everyone. So it's even, I think, probably worse than it probably was at that time with the conflicts. But when you started to write this, did you have that? You were like, I want to write about this time, or did you have the story and say, oh, I think I'll put it in that time? Or
it was two things why I said it in '68. One was well, one was that I couldn't help but see some of the same parallels to our days in 2020, say 2021 that you're referencing. The kind of disorienting competition and polarization of politics and the endless war in Afghanistan and political enmity everywhere you looked, and people kind of at each other's throats. And that was very 1968. So 68 was that all over again. So I saw the parallels to our time, which always leads a writer to want to explore something that is kind of a good idea on paper. The other half of why I said it in '68 was because I was a wide-eyed 14-year-old skinny bucktooth kid who grew up right over the hill from Laguna in a little place called Tustin. And I first discovered the beautiful kind of radical artist colony of Laguna Beach when I was 14. We would get, me and my friends would get my mom and dad or their moms and dads to drive us over the hill into Laguna and drop us off. And we'd have our swim fins and we'd go body surfing and we'd go to the Taco Bell for Mexican food and just hang out in Laguna the day, go to the record stores and look at the hippies and just kind of hang, and for a 14-year-old, that world was just astonishing. I mean, here's this gorgeous, beautiful city and these rugged, gorgeous beaches, trees everywhere, and in '68, town is just crammed with hippies with their wild clothes and hair everywhere, and the cops are mad at them, and there's drug deals going down everywhere you look.
Wow.
The whole city smells like marijuana smoke and eucalyptus kind of combined, And I was 14, and I didn't understand hardly any of it, but I got it, and I saw it, and I recorded it in my little 14-year-old brain. And 52 years later, when I sat down to write another novel, I go, okay, what now, Jeff? I just finished my 4th Roland Ford novel. I need to write another book. That's what I do. And I thought, I think I might want to go back in time, because as I started thinking about that, those memories came back in spades, the smells and the sights and all the hours that I spent there. I had it all in me, and didn't even know it was there until I started remembering that time, and hatching the idea for this book. And the other thing, the third thing that really caught me, or punted me into back in time into 1968, was that I was hatching this book during the very, very first COVID lockdowns in 2020, the ones in New York, when things were so grim. And the more I would wake up in the morning and just read more and more bad news. The caseloads are growing, and there's freezers and all this stuff, and I thought, no, I'm going to stay in 1968 if I can. I'm going to go back there, and I'm going to remember all that stuff, and I'm going to walk around with the hippies and invent characters, and write a coming of age story, a mystery about that time. So COVID kind of locked me down into 1968 in a weird way.
So that's what I was going to ask you. I wanted to ask you two things. I was curious if you just wanted to immerse yourself in a different time and place during the last couple of years, which you answered, and I completely understand. And I think that's why I enjoyed reading it so much right now, because things are not great right now either. But you mentioned that your parents and your friends' parents dropped you off as a 14-year-old, and what you described was a community full of hippies, angry police, marijuana. So what? I can't imagine my parents dropping me off at 14 in that environment.
What were mom and dad thinking? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think that they trusted me, weirdly enough. They trusted us. We were these little square kids, and we weren't hippies, and we didn't have long hair. We didn't know marijuana from hashish, and we were sort of innocents abroad, and mom and dad trusted us enough to spend the day, daylight hours, together in Laguna Beach with a bunch of boys, and going body surfing. And I'm really glad that they did, because a lot of parents would not have allowed that. And so thank mom and dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
yeah. I mean, I am thrilled for them, and for all of us who get to read about it now.
I wouldn't let my kids do it either.
Well, that's the thing. Would you let your kids do that? No,
maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, and see, I was too young at that time to really know anything that was going on, but it was a different world that I lived in too, because, but I do remember driving around and seeing like groups of I guess they were hippies sitting in like circles in parks, and I would be like, what are they doing? And my mom would be like, nothing. Quit looking.
And how old were you?
They're probably just passing a joint around or something.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Oh. Okay, so I really want to talk about your protagonist, because I just fell in love with him. This 16-year-old kid, his name is Matt Anthony, right? Yeah, Anthony. And he's a paper boy. He's got a paper route, right? He's thinking about his first kiss with a girl he's got a crush on. He's always thinking about food, reality, and I think most 16-year-old boys also probably are always thinking about those things too. But you just find yourself rooting for him immediately. He unfortunately ends up with a missing sister, right? He adores her, and the police think she's probably just another hippie. And it's like the world isn't really listening to him. And so he has to end up going into all the nooks and crannies in Laguna Beach. And I wanted to know Jeff, how did you get us to just root for this kid right away? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, I think just because I was so much myself, I was really pulling for him. I wanted to write a coming of age story about a boy on his way to becoming a young man. And I wanted to write about a young boy doing that with no real material advantages at all. In fact, his home life is kind of fallen apart. The family's fractured. His brother's in Vietnam fighting. His father is a deadbeat dad. He's way out in Texas, doesn't say much. Mom is sort of supporting, the two younger children with her waitress job, but she's also kind of a stoner and has more than a small problem with opium. And so she's kind of sliding out of in and out of reality, and leaving Matt as sort of this, man of the house, but he's only 16 and he's got a paper route, for crying out loud. He doesn't have a driver's license yet. And I wanted to create a character who was, just right one step above being homeless and one step above being out of the dumpsters to get food. And Matt actually thinks about doing dumpster diving for food because he's so hungry all the time. There's not enough groceries to be had. He can't scrounge enough free food from his friend at the hotel. And his mom brings home really good food from her waitress job, but she usually eats it before he gets enough. So anyway, and plus he's going through growing pains, his shoulders ache and his knees ache and his back aches. And the doctor tells him it's growing pains, Matt. And Matt doesn't believe him and until late in the book. And when he weighs himself, late in the book, and he realizes he's gained like 20 pounds in 2 months, and he's grown 2 inches. He's just like bursting. His clothes are too small, and yet he's still just one step away from being homeless. At one point in the book, he is homeless. He's living out of his mother's hippie van, and the cops are after him. So he's kind of an outlaw, and he's kind of a home and almost a homeless kid at the same time. And I tried to write a boy who did things that I liked to do or would like to do. He's a fisherman. I love to fish. He's an artist. My brother's an artist. I tried to pick the things in Matt that were lovable and likable and respectable, and things that would make people that would endear him to people. And I'm glad I got you to love him, because that's the whole point of the book in a way.
Well, because the first image of him is on his bike with his fishing rod behind him, and I just could picture this kid, and that felt very familiar, I think, and that right away that
and it brings you back to that time too, where it's just feels like simpler, even though it's really not, but it is, well, I guess it must be a little bit. I think the thing is maybe that your parents probably just didn't understand how bad things could be, because they didn't have stuff where on the news all the time. Like there could be like the town over, and there could be, a missing kid, and your parents wouldn't even know it back then. I feel like they were just, everybody was in their own little bubble. And if it didn't happen there, you didn't realize that, out in California, this was happening or something. So
yeah. And the times were so similar and so different at the same time. I think of how vastly different the world would be if you had to, muster up a dime and find a phone booth to make a call. So
right. I was thinking that
using your iPhone,
think how different the story would have been if he had a cell phone to pull out, like it just would have changed everything.
Yeah.
So, Christie read this fairly lovely review from this very unknown author named Lee Child. And I noticed that CJ Box, who's also one of my favorite authors, called you the poet of American crime fiction. And I thought that was beautiful.
Isn't that cool?
It was really cool. And I was wondering what your 16-year-old or 14-year-old self would have thought about that.
Well, that I would have been amazed and surprised when I was 14. Particularly padding around Laguna and just doing the things that boys do. I was collecting all those images and those sensations, but I didn't have any idea why. I had no intention of writing anything ever. And I wanted to be the shortstop for the Angels. That was my goal when I was 14. So I had no idea of anything writing in the future or wanting to have any of that information. So I'd have been totally surprised. I think later, maybe by the time I was midway through high school, I was starting to get the story bug, like what would it be like to be a writer bug. I'd always loved stories, but I wasn't a bookish kid either. But around mid high school, I started thinking, well, I wonder if I could do that, And when I was a sophomore, I was in the Bonehead English class, and we were a terrible class, and I took it was Bonehead Mythology and Folklore with Miss Page, and I took her class because I thought it would be an easy A, and she hated our class. We were just a bunch of misbegotten, kids, boys mainly, and one day we came to class, and She says, I'm not going to teach class. I'm not going to try to teach you people anything today. I think you're basically incapable of learning. So what I want you to do is come up to my desk where she had a pasteboard box of paperback books from her garage. And she says, I don't want you to come up, form a single file line in silence. And when it's your turn, close your eyes, reach into the box and pull out a book and take it back and read it, or I'm sending you to the assistant principal. So that's what we did. We grumbled and, it was my turn. I closed my eyes and pulled out a book. And it was this blue, funny looking thick paperback called Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, who I didn't know from anything, And I took that book back and read it for the 45 minutes, and then took it home and read it assiduously over the next couple of weeks. I'm a slow reader, always have been, but I read that whole book word for word, and I loved it. It was so subversive, and it made me laugh. And it was just like nothing that I'd ever read before, And I remember thinking after finishing that book, that if I could be a writer, if anybody could be a writer someday and write a book that would supply a millionth of the pleasure to his readers or her readers that I got from Joseph Heller, you would have to consider yourself a success. And I think that was the first little dream that I might have had, or notion that I might have entertained, that I maybe could someday write.
Wow.
Well, you've accomplished that. That's awesome. I mean,
I hope so.
I remember when you talked to us at Sleuth Fest, and you rewrote your book 5 times and threw it out and rewrote it. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's amazing. But that's an education in itself. And so, you've just honed your craft so much. I mean, really, it is a pleasure to read your book. It really is. I'm not even just saying that because you just said that.
that means a lot to me,
We are sometimes liars, but I'm not this time.
Lie a little sometimes. Yeah. Get the guy to smile or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great compliment. And one of the deals that I make with myself before I begin another book is I'm always trying to outdo the last one, and I'm always trying to improve as a writer. And I think that writing is like golf in the sense that you never get the whole thing all the way down, but you want to feel like you're doing better. And for you to say that my 27th novel was I obviously had passed the audition, as John Lennon keeps saying. That means a lot. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, this is a great time for us, Jeff, to switch to, I don't know if you remember this, but we'd like to ask the authors, yes, take a drink. Ask the authors the question in the bottle. We used to call it the craft question back then, but nobody could figure that out. So we had to switch it.
Yeah, we had trouble saying it, craft question. I think in our episode, we kind of laughed about it.
But it's just a random question. And all right, Christy, what do you got?
Okay. What is the funniest gift you have ever given or received?
Oh, the funniest gift I've ever given or received. Well,
or the oddest, or
let's see. I was given a little round, black, hairy puppy for Christmas when I was 12, and that I think is the most fun gift that I've ever had.
Did you not know it was coming?
No, I named him Pudgy, and he was our dog for 13 years. He was this little black Cocker Spaniel mix something, just a little dog. And so anyway, an unusual gift, especially to just be waiting for you in the living room.
Yeah, I know. That's like from a movie.
That is. I bet your parents had a blast planning that.
Yeah. Yeah. And something interestingly enough, they got that dog Pudgy at the animal shelter in Laguna Beach. They drove up the Canyon Road, and they told me that that Pudgy cost $5, and for the $5 you got the dog, the puppy, and you got like 4 cans of food and a little brush and some sort of a plush toy or a ball or something, all for $5.
That's a pretty good deal.
Wow.
So too.
Times have changed.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Pudgy is a good name.
Oh.
All right, Christy, I'm curious. Do you have one? What's your what was the question? Oddest or funniest?
I guess funniest.
Gift.
I don't know. I am a very good gift giver, so I have
Yes,
never
you
given
are.
a funny gift, but unless it was called for. But let me see. I've gotten I think the one that I got the first Christmas after I was married from my husband at the time, it was maybe not funny, but to me it was like, what?
Oh no.
It was
I'm scared to
a
hear.
box with nail stuff in it, like clippers and scissors and maybe things to trim your beard too. I don't know. It was like a manicure type. I'm like, what is this? First of all, because obviously, look, I'm not the,
Doesn't
look at
do
my
that.
nails.
Yeah.
Don't look at my nails. But like, and I was like, this is my first Christmas. I'm
What
looking
does
for
this gift tell you
jewelry.
about yourself?
I know. It's like, okay. I still have it though.
Is
I'm
it in like
divorced,
a
but I still have
pouch,
it.
kind of like a little pouch?
It's a
You
little
unzip
box.
it
It
and
has a
surgical
little
or
latch
something?
on
Okay,
it.
all right.
Yeah, like and I should go get it out. And it was like fake animal alligator leather outside, and then on
Okay,
the
okay.
inside,
How thoughtful.
I know.
FYI, don't give your newlywed wife a pair of nail clippers for Christmas is the moral of that story.
Yeah.
It doesn't
You
set
probably
things
had,
off
like-
on the.
You probably were hoping for Pudgy. Like you wanted like a puppy or something.
Probably would have loved that. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny. It was funny. It was like one of those things like, okay, I'm never going to forget this. And why did I get you that good gift?
That's
Yeah, what'd you get him?
I don't even
Yeah.
remember. Probably something really good like golf clubs or something.
Yeah, there you go.
I said I'm a good gift giver. Anyway.
Yes, you are. You are. Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So-
So we love our 16-year-old Matt Anthony, but I have to admit, I am kind of curious about Roland Ford.
Roland Ford.
Yeah.
He's
Is he
not
coming
in this
back?
book.
No, but is
I
he
don't
coming
know.
back?
I don't know. I have no plans to bring him back, but I might, because I like Roland Ford too. And I like writing that series, and I had a lot of fun with him. And I think somehow, as my friend Barbara Peters at the Poison Pen said the other night, I think somehow that I'm not done with Roland Ford. She doesn't think I am, and she wants another Roland Ford
Yeah.
book. So I don't know. I may do that. I may not. When I had my 1,000 Steps outlined and stuff, I showed it to an editor. My agent took it to an editor at Forge, and they loved it, and they bought it immediately and offered me another book as well. So I signed a 2-book deal with them, and I'm already working on the next book, of course, because authors work ahead, and it's not Roland. So it'll be a little while if I do it, but I may. I like that series.
Because
Yeah.
I was wondering how that worked. I mean, obviously you're at a level where you can just write what you want. Except
sometimes,
you have a
kinda.
contract. You didn't have a contract set up when you started. Well, actually, you made the outline.
Yeah,
Then you get a
exactly.
contract, and
That's how that went. Yeah. And I'll tell you, to be honest about that whole thing with Roland and 1,000 Steps coming up next, I finished the 4th Roland Ford book, Then She Vanished, and I was casting about for ideas and story ideas like we were talking about earlier. And I became enthralled with this 1968 in Laguna Beach stuff, because I was there as a kid, and all the reasons that we've been talking about. And that idea for 1,000 Steps, that book, 1,000 Steps, just literally ordered me to write it and said, "You're not writing Roland Ford, you're writing me." And I took that seriously, or the creative guy inside me took that seriously. And when something demands that much attention so strong, and you feel these memories and these sensations kind of swelling up inside you, you listen to that. That's where good writing comes from, I think. And so I listened. I followed the Piper on this one.
So did Matt 1968, that whole environment came to you. Did Matt speak to you, or did you know what was going to happen to his sister? I mean, was it the character, or what was he was facing? Well, how did it come to you? I'm curious.
The story, kind of the nuts and bolts of the plot, the story.
Yeah.
I had a pretty strong notion of what had happened to his sister. She goes missing the first page, literally. So
Yeah.
no spoilers there. And he's a real fan of his older sister. He adores her, respects her and all that stuff. And so I knew that I wanted her to be missing right now, and she is. And I knew that I wanted Matt's worries about what might have happened to her to be kind of his own and not shared by even his own mom, and the cops say the less. I mean, they just think that she's this hippie chick. She just graduated from Laguna Beach High School and she didn't come home last night. What's the big deal? Everybody does that. So anyway, and then, now that I know she's gone, as I'm a writer here and I'm on page, 15, and I'm feeling my way through things. One of the beauties of a mystery is that as the protagonist steps forward into the story, you get to watch him and help him solve it. So it's like me and Matt are kind of the same guy. I'm taking him to places where I think he needs to go or would go, and letting him walk in the room and say something like bitching, So I get to do both. You're solving a mystery and solving the mystery of how to write a book at the same time, and it's really kind of fun. I don't know, that's kind of an obtuse answer to a more straightforward question, but that's what I did. I had a pretty good idea of where that story was going. Endings always fool me. I always start worrying about the ending really early. When I'm 300 pages into a 500-page book, I really start worrying because I can't figure out how all these clues and all these things are going to add up and what's going to happen at the end of the book. I know what I want to happen, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this evidence. That it typically in a mystery or a thriller, it builds slowly and it compounds and it becomes crowded and top heavy, and then it just comes crashing down at the end. So how am I going to handle that? How am I going to catch all these things, and not get crushed by these boulders that are coming down? So it's fun and it's hairy, and the last 100 pages of that book, of all of them really, but of 1,000 Steps in particular, it has, that book contains a bunch of action scenes, but there's one big sort of big action scene towards the end of the book that resolves some of the story, and I must have written that thing, I don't know how many times. I worked on that for weeks, and it's not that long. It's less than 20 pages long. Right? It's one chapter, but I worked on that so hard because I had to get it right, because I'll tell you, writing an action scene is a lot harder than people give credit for. Read a good action scene, and that a lot of work went into that. Authorship isn't Hollywood. You don't have a camera, and you can't film a car chase. You have to describe the car chase, and that's a hard thing to do for a gunfight or any physical action. Doesn't have to be violent. And so anyway.
And if it's not right, it really brings you out of the story as a reader, because you're like sitting there going, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. How does the arm go there? Whatever,
Oh yeah, you're doomed if you
true.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, it was fun to try to chase Matt down and put him into situations where I thought he could get a clue.
I think you're giving Cathi nervous energy, because she's such an organized person and she has to have everything outlined. So the thought of getting to that point and being, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. How am I going to get this togetger? She would be like, no.
I have hives.
You can see her bored back there.
I was going to say, you break out in the hives about page 300 in your manuscript. Yeah.
So speaking of nerves, though, did you surprise your agent or when you switched to a 16-year-old protagonist from Roland Ford?
And is that considered YA? Because I don't really know if that's a YA book or not.
I don't really know either. I think a YA book is kind of what the publishers call it, and how they market it and put a certain kind of cover maybe. So I think it's a great book for a young adult to read, but I don't think it's a YA book, and that's just my sort of amateur
That's
opinion.
exactly what I felt like. I felt like this is a really good book that they could read, but at the same time, I feel like it's just a little bit larger than a YA book. Well,
because I think, and go back to this great cover here, we'll bookend this conversation. But when you are a certain age or above a certain age, and you see this cover, part of what you're getting, and I think that's part of this for terrific appeal. And I think a lot of readers are going to love stepping back into 1968.
Yeah,
which they should.
I think they are. I think you're right. I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff, this has been such a great conversation. I could
It
have
really
more
has.
wine and more conversation with you for a long time. But
Yes,
Christy has a
absolutely.
question for you, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Yes. All right. Let me see. This is different from our Corks and Conversation ending question because, we have to do it different. So let's see. If you had to choose one of your characters to be your personal chef, who would you choose and why?
My personal chef. Well, it would have to
Because you
be.
have one of those, don't you?
Oh, yes, of
Ah.
course. I get a new one every year. It was okay. Just based on trying to be. Oh, you've got a dog.
Yeah,
Just
I do.
to be topical, if I was to choose a personal chef, it would have to be Matt Anthony, who invents in this book the peanut butter and jelly burrito.
Oh, it's so gross.
Which I actually invented, to tell you the truth. So
I was going to say, I had never heard of that.
Yeah, I invented it. Yes.
Like, I'm
Oh.
trying to picture this, or like you just like put spoonfuls of, and then roll.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
just
so funny.
heat the pan, get the pan good and hot. You don't need oil or anything. I use the wheat ones. 'Cause
Flour?
They were cheaper, flour,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're cheaper and
Yep.
bigger. And,
Yeah.
and you put it in and, get it hot on both sides, and then just start, just finger,
Flop it.
teaspoon in all the peanut butter and jelly you think you want, and then fold it up and get a giant glass of milk and you're set.
That doesn't sound bad. I might do,
Not bad at all.
you could do it like, I think I would replace the jelly with like chocolate spread or something.
Nutella. Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah.
I love
Chocolate
it.
Spread would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that would be pretty good. Okay, Mr. T Jefferson Parker, if our listeners and when our listeners want to reach out to you and find out more about you and your other books besides 1,000 Steps, where should they go?
I'm easy to find. Books are easy to find. tjeffersonparker.com is a good web page for me. I do Facebook posts pretty often from my thing. Look me up on Facebook, and I tweet and stuff. I guess you have to follow the guy to get your tweets, his tweets. But I do that if you want to sign up. And yeah, I'm easy to find. I'm easy to get, and I've got a good email address on the website. If someone wants to just send me a note or say hello or like the book or didn't like it or whatever, and I do read that email and respond to most of it. So yeah, I'm easy to get.
Great.
I'm out there.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, and
yeah.
we thank you again for
We knew it'd
taking
be
the
fun.
time.
In fairness, if you go back and listen, we got to share a glass of wine with Jeff and his wife actually after Sleuth
Mhm.
Fest, and that was super fun. So
It was.
we had high expectations for today.
I did too. I knew it would be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think all we
Cheers.
have to do is say cheers.
Yes.
All right. Cheers,
Cheers.
Kathy.
Thanks for the
Cheers,
great
Christy.
read.